when we sit down or just have a beer, or even in this video, talk about what the biggest threats to Canada are, there's quite a few things that come to mind, right? Now, the Liberals would like to think that, or they would like to try to convince you that that would be America, that that would be Trump, that that would be Christianity, that that would be white people, that that would just be traditional values. And all of those things I very much disagree with. They are not threats. It's just how we are. Trump is great. America is great, whether you like it or not. Their stock market, their economy is phenomenal. They're the world's superpower. Christianity is awesome. As a second time going to church in the past 20 years, I think I can say that now. And white people are not the cause of our problems. Real threats out there are Russia, China, but more specifically here at home is the biggest threat. And it's liberals. Liberals have been ruining our economy, ruining our minds, creating all this division, and it's really taken a toll on us. And because of liberals attacking China, China has now retaliated against us, and it's causing a massive problem, specifically around canola oil. That's taking a devastating hit on our farming sector, specifically in the entire province of Saskatchewan. Now, the premier of Saskatchewan is this guy named Scott Moe, and Scott Moe has said, well, I can't really take liberal incompetence anymore, so I'm going to go to China and I'm going to just strike a deal with them myself because Mark Carney's not doing it, the liberals aren't doing it, so whatever. Which sums it up to, if you want the job done, you got to do it yourself, which is a pretty conservative thing to say and to think. So we're going to be taking a look at that, but we are going to start off with a couple smaller things, such as the Pride Parade in Ottawa getting completely shut down because of, Palestinian or Hamas protesters. But also we're going to take a look for those who miss it in the first couple of minutes. If you don't want to see it, go ahead and feel free to skip forward. But for those who missed it, Mark Carney's call to action that Canada is moving forward with boots on the ground to fight Russians in Ukraine. Yeah, again, the biggest threat to Canada is right here, our Liberal government. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help grow the channel. And here we go. Let's deliver on the promise of looking at Mark Carney be our biggest threat.
Forces are represented in Ukraine.
Yes, hi, Briar Stewart from CBC. Prime Minister, given that Russia has rejected the idea of a NATO-backed security guarantee and European forces on the ground, what actually do you think the chances are of a ceasefire? And if there is one, I mean, you mentioned you don't exclude the presence of Canadian troops on the ground. Are you referring to that in a peacekeeping capacity or training? If you could answer that also in French. And President Zelensky, you talked about the importance of having a presence of Canadian troops. I'm wondering what more you can say about that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, the first is we need a cessation of hostilities. We need a ceasefire. We can call it a ceasefire, a truce, an armistice. That's necessary to stop the killing. But the conditions around that, there will be military force in Ukraine, Ukrainian military force. There'll be no exclusion of pathways for Ukraine to the European Union or to NATO for that matter, pathways towards. And there will be security guarantees. There will be security guarantees in any durable ceasefire. That's the lesson of Minsk. That's the lesson of 2014. That's the lesson of history, is that we need not to trust and verify, but deter and fortify. And the fortification, the deterrence, is anchored in those security guarantees. Again, as I said, starting with the Ukrainian army and reinforcing that, but then being buttressed by the coalition of the willing. And again, I welcome, without specifying, welcome the openness of President Trump to some form of U.S. participation in that. Now, all of this in real time, as you ask your question, is under discussion about the specificities and the modalities. But it's not the choice of Russia how the future sovereignty, independence, liberty of Ukraine is guaranteed. It's the choice of Ukraine and the decisions of the partners.
Yeah, it's not just a choice of Ukraine. It's also this weird like money laundering thing where Ukraine is getting literally more money than any other country in the entire planet to fight what seems to be a dead war. Like the war, there's no real agreement on who's going to win and who's going to lose or peace negotiations. It's just forever ongoing. So what would happen if Canada just slowly started to pull back how much money we're giving? There's other countries out there that want to fund it. And I, for one, think that we shouldn't be playing a role in this. Now, Canada has had this reputation of being peacekeepers. And that's something that I think, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments, but was a proud part of our identity. Like, yeah, Canada's peacekeepers. Like, we don't get involved in the mix, but we help with peacekeeping. And you notice that the reporter even asked that question, and Mark Carney's answer was not clear as to how we're doing peacekeeping if we're literally doing boots on the ground on the front lines, fighting against Russians in conjunction with Ukrainians. And I don't like it. I don't respect these decisions. And unfortunately, every single party in Canada that I've seen is on board with, not necessarily boots on the ground. I don't know if the Conservatives have broken their silence on that, but everyone is on board. The parties are on board with funding the war in Ukraine. So I want to pass a question off to you. How do you feel about this? Are you pro the war? Do you want to get involved, or are you totally against it? Let me know where you guys lie down below. And I'm, again, sorry if this is repetitive. It seems like last few videos I've definitely like hyper focused on that specific piece about Mark Carney, but a lot of people watch every second video, every third video. And for those who missed it, now we're all caught up. Next, we got to take a look at what's going on, or rather what just happened in Ottawa. What just happened? Did my voice crack? With the Pride Parade, because it got completely shut down and canceled from Palestinian protesters. Oh my goodness. Oh, it's it's like fungus. You just can't get rid of them.
Thousands of people lined the streets of Ottawa for Capital Pride this afternoon, ready to celebrate the inclusivity of the annual parade. But about an hour after it started, the new parade route was blocked. CTV's Natalie Van Roy has more on the unexpected interruption. Natalie.
Boston, the parade started at 1 p.m., but it was canceled only an hour and a half later, and that's because the route was blocked off in front of Parliament Hill on Wellington Street by pro-Palestinian protesters. The group Queers for Palestine Ottawa blocking Ottawa's annual Pride Parade Sunday afternoon, bringing the festivities to a halt.
We had staged a disruption of the parade to say our demands to both Capital Pride's executive director and board of directors.
Queers for Palestine. Now, I'm not the smartest, tool in the shed, but last time I checked, queers were not welcomed in Palestine, like at all. You would get, beheaded potentially. You would get stoned, not in their, Mary Jane way, but they would beat you with rocks. You would get, thrown into the ocean, defend for yourself. Like nice things wouldn't happen if you were openly queer, or if people found out you were queer in Palestine, to the best of my knowledge. So the fact that queers are standing up for Palestine at a pride parade is poetic and symbolic of just how weird Canada and this like leftist mentality truly is.
And to the mayor, we were looking for apologies from the mayor in particular for boycotting last year and for encouraging other powerful institutions to boycott the parade.
The group halted the parade to demand the apology from not only the mayor, Mark Sutcliffe, but also other organizations that pulled out of the Capital Pride events last year when organizers issued a statement condemning Israel.
The mayor said he would not come up and talk to us. And even when communicated that the parade would then disperse if we didn't move, he still refused to come up and talk to us.
I think I'm changing my mind on this. This is like the Pride Parade has turned into this really woke melting pot of things that it didn't used to be. The LGB isn't necessarily the problem. It's the T and the so on and so forth, and the pluses and the minuses and the asterisks and all of those additions, right? So this is kind of like a case of the woke left meeting the radical woke left, and let them eat each other. Let them eat it themselves, right? Why not? Who cares?
A statement Ottawa's mayor said in part, "It's deeply regrettable that a group of activists chose to block the parade, ultimately leading Capital Pride officials to cancel the event. My heart goes out to the many people in our city who were deprived of the opportunity to participate in this celebration of joy, resilience, and community." The parade traveled from City Hall along Elgin to Wellington Street, where it was halted by protesters at O'Connor Street.
I am sad I didn't get to march, but I'm definitely way sadder for the people who are experiencing a lot of hardship over in Palestine, and this is a way to get a really good message out.
Speaking before the disruption, Capital Pride's executive director said they were excited for the new route in front of Parliament.
We're really excited that we're reclaiming Wellington. It's a really important place in the 2S LGBTQ plus community for protest. We've got a lot of really important victories won through protesting.
Before the parade was halted, Mayor Mark Sutcliffe said city officials were happy to take part again. Organizers said 175 groups and more than 6,000 people were registered to take part in the event.
The woke left meets the radical woke left. You can't make this up. This is the state of Canada. It's so funny. Now, it's so funny. What if every Pride parade in Canada was just completely interrupted by Palestinian protesters? I mean, where can I sit on a rooftop patio and drink a beer and watch that chaos? Not support any individual protest or parade, but watch the clash. It's funny. That's all I got to say about that. But I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. And now, on a more serious note, we got to actually talk about policies and things that are causing harm to Canada. What's going on with Saskatchewan? So for those that need a refresher, here we go.
Saskatchewan farmers are bracing themselves for the economic pain of tariffs, not just from south of the border, but from China too. On Saturday, China announced retaliatory 100% tariffs on Canadian canola oil and pea imports. They've also announced a 25% duty on pork and seafood. This comes in response to the federal government's decision last fall to put a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles and a 25% levy on its aluminum and steel products.
We're not surprised. I think everybody was expecting this day was going to come. Ever since the federal government announced tariffs on the import of Chinese electric vehicles, it was highly anticipated that the Chinese government would retaliate in some manner. So today, I guess we got that news.
While not surprised, the president of the Agriculture Producers Association is still disappointed. He says canola is a cornerstone of the Saskatchewan economy, with about 20 million acres seeded annually. The tariffs already have farmers weighing in on what they'll mean for Western producers.
So in a world of uncertainty, this just adds a new and disturbing level of uncertainty for us.
China and the United States are the province's largest export markets. According to APAS, that means any disruption will have serious financial consequences and affect prices.
Certainly we saw that when there was talk of tariffs going into the United States, that our canola prices took a sharp drop. They've since recovered somewhat, but they're on a decline again.
So this video is from several months ago. Since then, the canola industry in Canada got hit yet again with a new updated announcement that took place less than 10 days ago. The canola industry asked Ottawa to curtail vegetable oil imports after China imposes new trade barriers. On Tuesday, from 10 days ago or 9 days ago, Beijing announced 75.8% duties on Canadian canola seed. The move comes towards the end of a 1 year anti-dumping probe. China's Ministry of Commerce argues that Canada's canola sector has benefited from extensive government subsidies and preferential policies that distort markets. So what's going on with Canada's response, specifically Saskatchewan's response, because they're the ones that deal with all of the canola, or the majority of the canola. Well, Scott Moe is taking matters into his own hands. The premier, or for the Americans out there that don't understand what a premier is, it's the governor of the state of Saskatchewan, the soon-to-be 51st or 52nd or maybe 53rd state of America. Here's what Scott Moe said in a recent CBC interview on the fact that he's basically going to China himself.
this nearly 76% tariff on canola seed that's hitting right before harvest. How significant is that compared to the magnitude of the previous 100% tariff already underway from China on canola oil and meal, that tariff that hit in March?
I would say it's extremely significant because it's additive to everything that is in place right now. Listen, our largest market for canola oil seed and meal is the United States of America. Our second largest market is China. We have, uncertainty at the very least, and 100% tariffs on oil and meal going into China now. And now this is added to that. It's not in place. It's added to that. So it's very, very significant to producers, to exporters, and I would say to Canadians as a whole in an industry that employs 200,000 people.
So Beijing, of course, they claim that this is the result, that they're doing this because Canada is dumping cheap canola into their market. That's not obviously what's widely believed to be the reason, but what do you make of their claim?
It's not the reason. But what we need to do as a province, and I would say as a nation, is to sit down with leaders in China and to forge a path forward, not only for the canola industry, or not even only for the ag industry or the seafood industry as well, as impacted by some of these tariffs, but I think for our broader trade relationship with China. China is a growing market. It's often a premium market, and they're increasing the things that they buy. And, as we diversify some of our additional production away from maybe places like the United States, China needs to be a viable option. And so we need to be in China. I've committed to going in the next number of weeks. I'm inviting the Prime Minister and federal ministers along, as ultimately, if we are going to advance that conversation, it needs to be a nation-to-nation conversation, and we would be there in a supportive role.
Now, I also want to add that whenever Canada has been hit with tariffs that have disrupted any of our industries, from even, let's just say, the United States, like our steel and auto sector workers, specifically in Ontario, the federal government, Mark Carney, gave Ontario Premier Ford a bunch of money, like $1 billion or $2 billion, if I'm not mistaken, to help subsidize all of those that were affected and the companies that were affected because of those tariffs. So just think back to COVID when people would apply for CERB. So that similar process, if I'm understanding everything correctly, is going on with steel and auto sector workers in Ontario, specifically like Southern Ontario, like Windsor area. I don't think Mark Carney, unless I've missed it, but I'd say I'm pretty plugged in. I don't think Mark Carney or the Liberals have said anything about this recent increase of trade barrier with China on Saskatchewan's canola oil, 75.8%. That's huge. Mark Carney hasn't said anything that I've seen. I could be wrong. Could let me know down in the comments and fact check me, but I haven't seen a swift or quick response at all from this recent attack from China. Now, is that preferential treatment that Doug Ford gets, even though he's a conservative? He very much likes to, what's this called? Coddling the balls of Mark Carney. Does he get more money and quicker response time because he likes to coddle and Scott Moe doesn't want to coddle? I don't know. That's up for debate, but I do find that fact quite interesting.
Well, I presume that part of that conversation will be about what the real reason is, if that conversation happens, and that is Canada's tariff, 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. And Melanie Joly, the industry minister, says that support for electric.
Yeah, the electric vehicle thing is also pretty crazy. I know that most of my viewers are probably not super keen on electric vehicles. Maybe you're an outlier. It really pisses me off about the whole EV thing, just to go on like a very quick tangent, because I like EVs. I don't like the mandate. I don't like when they say climate change, right? Like it's Beetlejuice. That really turns a lot of people off. EVs are pretty neat and they have their place. It's a pretty cool thing to do if you live in like a small area and you don't really go very far. They can be pretty cool. And if the climate obviously depends on it. But the fact that Canada has these insane tariffs on Chinese EVs, 100%, you could bring in with import fees. So you can buy a really small, like a Toyota Corolla equivalent of a Chinese EV for $14,800. Now, the import fees, quality checks, all that stuff, it would add to the cost, but it'd still be around, $25,000 for like a Chinese EV. The quality of it, it's being used around the world. It's up for debate. But if the government of Canada was the point, is if the government of Canada is like this afraid of like climate change and we got to make all these drastic changes, and then these like really affordable changes are presented to us and they're like, yeah, no, double it. Like Mr. Beast, double it, give it to the next person. 100% tariffs. We're in a hurry, but we're not that much in a hurry. That's a little weird. And I just can't help but question those decisions, right? Because if it really were about climate change, then we wouldn't be having 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs.
Vehicles and canola is not a choice between one or the other. So what's your sense of, if you were to have conversations with China and the Prime Minister was going to be there, about the government's urgency to help canola farmers when it has to also think about the other industries that are tied up in this?
Yeah, and they also have to, the federal government has to represent what is creating wealth for Canadians and what is employing 200,000 Canadians today, and that's the canola industry. It's a $45 billion industry, dwarfing any semblance of an EV industry that we have. And listen, with respect to whether it's the EV conversation or what that might be, we need to be sitting in front of our trading partner in China. Advancing the whole of the conversation on what we are going to have with respect to market access for ag products, for other products as well, moving forward. And, EVs and the 100% tariff that we put on, and to really align us with U.S. trade policy, I think we're all aware of that. That's a card. That is a card that we, as Canadians, will have to look at some point in time, quite likely. But that isn't the only card that we have. Saskatchewan and Canada are, long-term, sustainable, reliable suppliers of a number of different products, not just canola seeds, oil, and meal to China. So we need to get there. We need to at least start the conversation. Right now, these tariffs are temporary, and we can't let them become permanent without getting in front of the Chinese leaders and the Chinese government. So I'm asking the federal government to engage in that nation-to-nation conversation, and committing to going myself to support that conversation happening.
In terms of other premiers also calling for action, Manitoba Premier Webb, can you want...
By the way, this is something that's been quite common with Conservative premiers in Canada. Danielle Smith went down to Mar-a-Lago before and I think after the federal election in America for Trump. She met with Trump and met with Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary, who's also Canadian, who's good friends with Trump, and I think that helped bridge the gap because Kevin O'Leary is starting up a northern Silicon Valley in Alberta for like AI data mining centers and things like that. So you're seeing Conservative premiers really just take matters into their own hands to go do what needs to be done. I don't think I've seen the same type of behavior from Liberal or even NDP premiers. I could be mistaken. Maybe it's my own blinders on. Maybe I just, I shut it out, or it's just not striking a chord as in my face and obvious as what it is with Premier Smith and Scott Moe. But yeah, it's definitely a bit more of a Conservative trait to just go and get the job done yourself. I like that.
Wants Ottawa to use the money that, even if it's a temporary tariff, but the money from the Chinese EV tariff that we have on to help canola producers with monetary and other supports. Is that something you would get behind as well?
Well, we have to be very careful because there's direct and indirect actions that can happen. And our largest trading partner is the United States of America, and we need that market as well. And so we have to be, sensitive and aware to what any indirect, consequences or action of financial supports may be in this space. I would say that if we can gain market access to both the United States and China for our canola products, and no support would be needed. And that's our primary goal right now. We have likely a 6 or 8 week window where this tariff is a temporary tariff in China. I think we should do our level best to have it removed, use the cards that we have to ensure that we're, engaging in that conversation to have it removed, and then there won't be any support that is necessary. We'll have market access. That's what canola producers want, what exporters want, and I would hope that's what Canadians want as well.
Now, last week, the show talked to the Canadian Canola Growers Association. Rick White, the CEO, said that this is a political problem that requires a political solution, that going through the whole WTO process is not quick enough to deal with this. Do you have any hope that this could be resolved quickly and these will be short temporary tariffs as opposed to long-standing ones? He pointed to the barley situation in Australia, and that went on for 3 years. So what are your hopes there?
I agree with Rick, and that's all the more reason for politicians to find their way to China. And to make every effort, and I don't know how it'll turn out, but make every effort to have the conversation with, a significant trading partner of ours, in particular when it comes to the conversation around the canola space. I would hope, and I think they'd be receptive if the Prime Minister was to show up with a Premier or two, supporting Canada's position, and I'd hope we'd be able to advance the conversation to, a place that's good for everyone. That's my hope. We'll deal with things as they transpire, but I firmly believe we have 6 to 8 weeks here to, make an impression and at least make an attempt to represent Canadians and represent 200,000 Canadians that work directly in the canola industry and many more indirectly.
Do you have any sense from the Prime Minister? Have you heard from the Prime Minister on whether he's open to such a trip?
Yeah, we've been engaged with not only Prime Minister Carney, but his Parliamentary Secretary, Cody Blah, the Minister of Agriculture, and a number of other ministers, not only on the China file, trade file, but also the United States of America trade file, as they are linked, as we can see with some of the political consequences. In particular, I think in Saskatchewan, we're seeing that. They've been engaged, and I commend the Prime Minister for prioritizing and meeting with the Prime Minister of China and finding his way to ultimately the meeting that has to happen, which is President Xi, and we want to do everything we can to, further prioritize and intensify the efforts for that meeting to happen in the next number of weeks. It needs to happen in the next number of weeks in order, for us to find a path forward with our second largest trading partner when it comes to our province, and I think a trading partner where there's additional opportunities in the future for all Canadians.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely interesting and probably a bumpy road to ride this one out. I don't think that there's much that Scott Moe at the provincial level can do to ease tensions with China, because this is China saying, hey, man, we're taking it out on you because we have trade business with you, but your government is hurting us. So we're going to have to hurt you guys, and we're taking it out on you. And so Scott Moe is basically China's scapegoat, I guess, or being made an example of is probably the better term. And I don't understand how Mark Carney hasn't taken this seriously. Going after our farmers is a pretty freaking big deal. And this is why Saskatchewan is blue, and that's why Alberta is blue, because the hard working citizens in this country, the blue collar workers, right? Farmers, the truckers, right? The people that roll up their sleeves and get the job done. The government, the liberal government, never cares about these people. And we see this time and time and time again. Mark Carney, if he had it his way, conservative people, blue collar workers, right, wouldn't even have a voice. He would just say, you're the ant farm, shut up, run the hamster wheel, and leave everything to me. That's the feeling that I get, and that really bothers me. I haven't heard Mark Carney publicly talk about this, but the moment our auto sector gets hit or steel and aluminum gets hit, oh yeah, hey, let's do a joint thing with Doug Ford, and we're going to give him money and give him this. Our farmers get hit, and where's Mark Carney?